Hey, what's going on, sports bettors? Matt here with OddsJam, here to give you some player props to bet for the Super Bowl. So I was scanning through the OddsJam screen, which is really cool. Literally just pulls up odds from every major sportsbook for a given market. Just need to click this little drop down here where you see the arrow, type in whatever market you're looking for, rushing, receiving, passing. I was going through all of the different odds and lines for the player props, and I found some really good ones. So figured I would record myself locking in these bets, talking about my strategy of why I think they are good, and we can go from there. So the first play that we're going to go ahead and lock in here is pulled from the player receiving yards market, and the bet is going to be at PointsBet Sportsbook. So make sure to log into your PointsBet account, and let's get into it. So the play is Jerick McKinnon over 20.5 receiving yards. So PointsBet prices this at 20.5 at minus 120 odds, I should say. So the over 20.5 at minus 120 odds. Just look at every other sportsbook and where they price it. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this in. I would like to risk to win 75 units. PointsBet normally doesn't let me get that much on a player prop, so we will see what they end up limiting me to or not. I guess for the Super Bowl, they will let me get more, which is very nice of them. But McKinnon over 20.5 receiving yards, really, really good play here. The reason why, just compare the PointsBet line to every other sportsbook and where they price it. PointsBet is at 20. Legitimately, every other sportsbook is at 22, with one at 23.5. That would be WinBet, and they actually favor the over. So not only is it priced 3 yards higher, it's also favoring the over, which is just insane. And for numbers as low as this, like 20 to 23, 20 to 22, that's a really big deal with yards as low as 20. Like with Travis Kelce and his receiving yardage being priced at 80 or 77, it's not nearly as big of a deal going from 77 to 80. Excuse me, going from 20 to 23, depending on how you want to assign probabilities, there is like a 10 to 12% chance that he lands at exactly 21, 22, or 23 receiving yards, which would obviously hit the over on PointsBet and would miss the majority of the other sportsbooks. Like if he landed at 22, he would miss literally every other sportsbook and where they price it, except for PointsBet having it at 20.5. So right off the bat, really, really good value on PointsBet and McKinnon to go over 20.5 receiving yards. I did look up McKinnon's stats because I was curious. Not that really that matters that much, to be honest with you. Like sportsbooks take into account the trends, they take into account the matchups, all that stuff when they price odds. But I am just curious, just because I'm kind of a nerd about that stuff. Number one, the Eagles do struggle at guarding receiving running backs. I was looking at DVOA splits, and they're below average, specifically at guarding receiving running backs. And I was also looking, so McKinnon has been kind of slow, he's been slow in both of the playoff games. Against the Jags, I think he went receptionless, and that was the first time since like September or October that he went a single game without a reception. Against the Bengals, he only had 2 receptions for not a lot of yards. So trends are not in our favor, but he was a really good receiving back prior to that. I mean, he was on fire to end the season. He scored in like 7 or 8 straight games. It just hasn't worked out his way in the playoffs. That doesn't mean that that is going to continue. And just looking at the value here, a lot of value on him going over. So this is play number 1. We are looking at McKinnon to go over 20.5 receiving yards. The next 2 plays are all in the rushing prop. I didn't find anything on passing yards, but I did find obviously that one on receiving, and I found a couple on rushing. The one I found was Isaiah Pacheco to run for over 50.5 yards. Same exact logic here. This is also a good play on Prize Picks. For those of you that use Prize Picks, he has a good over as well. But PointsBet, same thing, has it at 50.5. Look at every other sportsbook and where they price it. 52, 52, 52, 52. One at 51, but again, they're favoring the over. Now again, I did say it's not as big of a value the higher the yards get, but it's still a value when you can find a discrepancy as massive as this across every sportsbook. Like if legitimately every single one has it at 51 or 52, and in our other case, 20 and 23, this one at 50 is clearly an outlier. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in this one as well We are looking at Isaiah Pacheco to rush for over 50.5 yards. Again, I'm going to risk to win $75 on this one. Let's see if they let me get the full amount on this. So that's, in this case, they don't. And just look at this if you want to laugh for a second. I tried to wager $86.25. They limited it and said I can only get $86.24, which is just hilarious. That 1 cent is the biggest deal, obviously. All right, so I guess I'll put $86.24 on this one. So I could win $74.99 instead of $75. So go ahead and lock this one in. And we $82.49. So the odds actually changed in my favor. They went from -115 to -110, which is interesting. Went in our favor, 82.49. So now let me lock this one in and we are good to go. So that was interesting. Despite it being significantly below every other book, the odds actually changed in my favor from -115 to -110. So as soon as it changes, OddsJam will reflect this as well, which I find that very, very fascinating. So I did have a play on Jalen Hurts to go over his rushing yardage prop. That has kind of, the value on that has diminished. It was at 43.5. Now it's at 45.5. So I unfortunately am not going to have that one. So just 2 plays for you guys to lock in: Isaiah Pacheco over 50.5 rushing yards, Jerick McKinnon over 20.5 receiving yards. Both of these locked in on PointsBet, and that's going to be it. So if you guys are tailing these, comment and let me know. Other than that, would appreciate if you could like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Helps me out a ton. Tons of Super Bowl content for you guys moving forward. And that's it. So appreciate everybody watching and have a good one.